bid a job for $60,000. So instead of just being the low price guy, I would rather be a negotiator, because the negotiator is going to get high tickets and low tickets. And I try to educate people on that. If you charge appropriately, you can make money doing anything. You can learn everything I learned for free. You just can't be lazy. You got to get online and you're always going to get things done quicker. So to duplicate that, you got to.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm here with Gerald Vess. Gerald is the owner of Roman Roof Cleaning and Roof King products out in Texas. And he is one of the most transparent, no bullshit dudes you'll find in this industry. And he offers a very interesting perspective in business. So it's great to have you on today, Gerald.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. So first thing I'd like to hop into, if you don't mind, kind of just taking me back and running me through your story.
Well, I started out young. My father owned a business, and so I worked for him when I first started, but he ended up wanting to make his business smaller. So I decided to open up an oil change business. I was 17, opened it up, decided that that was miserable. I had it for about a year. I said I'd never own another business in my life. Went to work for another guy, and then it eventually went back to my father. He opened up it was an automotive repair shop, and I started running it for him. And I learned there that, that's the place to be is in the front and running and owning the business. And so from there, we just, I ended up having a 5-location auto repair business. And then through the years, just alongside of that one, I would start a business and build it up a little bit, sell it. There were some of them I opened that I planned on keeping, but just ended up selling. But through that time, and I guess you've seen some of my story, when we had the 5 locations, that was really more to the end of my growth spurt. I had tons of businesses till then. And then I had, when I done that, I actually got a little too big for my britches, ended up going broke. And that's one reason I'm not real big on having multiple locations unless you have the personality for it. But then after that, I went broke, but I still kept one location. So I didn't go completely broke, but just almost, but kept the one location. I had a manager there, so I didn't have to work every day. So that's when I started looking into, honestly, my roof got dirty. And so I started researching how to clean it. And I'm just one of those guys, if somebody else can do it, I can do it. And so I said, there's a need here for that. There's not many people that do it. And so I cleaned my roof, worked out good. A few days later, I just put ads in the paper. Hey, I clean roofs. And then we were off to the races. And then just like anything I do, I just dive head deep and just started growing it. Like the Roof King products, there really wasn't a good dependable system out there to spray. And so I built something for me, and it worked out great. And so I thought, well, just again, there was a need. So that's when I started building the equipment and selling that to the industry. And then with the classes, kind of the same thing. I've seen so many people destroying roofs and causing issues and begging for somebody to open up the door and help them learn. And so that's the reason we started doing the school and teaching, and that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. So 2 interesting things you pointed on. First being that when you first got started, I guess in the entrepreneurial space, you're running your own business, said you're never going to do it again, got a job, and then said the same thing, never going to do it again, went straight back to business, right?
Yeah. I, when I first started, I didn't know how to price. I'm like so many new guys that think price is the only thing that sells. So I had an oil change place. And of course, back then, Walmart, that was when they really kind of started doing the oil changes. And they didn't do a lot of other things, but they did that. So I was trying to compete with them. Well, you can't compete with Walmart. And so that's the reason I hated it. Yeah, I couldn't make any money doing it. So it just wasn't worth doing. But I learned through time, if you charge appropriately, you can make money doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other interesting thing you said was basically when you got started in pressure washing, it was because you needed your own home cleaned. You went out, cleaned it, realized this is a problem people face, and you offered it as a service. Same thing with the products company. You had a problem that you were facing, you found a solution for it, and then you went out and offered it to other people. And then same exact thing with the coaching. So it's just very interesting. I don't think a lot of people in the space realize, yes, they're offering a service, but what they're really doing is offering a solution to whatever problem the homeowner is facing. And it sounds like a lot of your success is because you realize that, throughout all of these endeavors.
Yeah. And, one thing that I try to teach is that, you've got to want to fill that need, but you've got to have a little heart in it. I mean, whenever I do something, I truly try to treat these people that's coming to my class, or I'm cleaning their roof or whatever. I treat them literally like my family, because that's, I want them to be happy. I don't want them to like me when I'm done. Uh, so I'm not just trying. I'm trying to help them at the end of the day,
Mhm.
just like I would a family member.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of people, they think short term, so they think I'll go out, do the job, collect the money, and that's the end of it. But in reality, if you build a good relationship with these people, I know like a lot of, in our pressure washing business, we're friends with the guys we service. So we're going there year after year, building good relationships. They refer people to us. So that one short term job can really amount to so much more than that if you approach it properly and genuinely care about these people too.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing I guess I've learned about myself. I've always been pretty successful with sales and with customers, but I've always in my mind thought I'm just wanting the money. But I've realized that as I've gotten older, uh, that's not all I want. I mean, I really truly care when I'm dealing with them, and I want them to be happy. I mean, obviously, I want to be happy, and I'd like to make the money, but at the end of the day, I just want both both me and my customer to walk away happy and glad we made the decision that we made, whether it's doing business together or not. Sometimes it's not worth doing the business together, but
Mhm.
obviously
Yeah.
90% of the time it is.
Yeah. Provide the value and then the money will follow. If you're just going straight for the money, you're not really going to get anywhere. But if you're going out providing as much value as possible, the money's going to come.
Well, you said that perfectly, and that's exactly right. And that's something that I was doing, but I couldn't put words to it. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. It took a while for me to see that. So at a young age, you already seeing that. You're already light years ahead of me, than I was at your. Well, how old are you?
I'm actually 23.
23. Yeah. So you're light years ahead of me because I'm 48. So I'll just watch you grow past me.
Well, I mean, hey, it's all subjective. Everyone, they progress at their own pace. I know plenty of guys years younger than me that are far, progressed past me. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're all on our own journey. So it
That's
just
right. That's right.
being able to learn from yourself, learn from other people in the industry. There's the guys that I learned from that are even younger than me. And something that I'm actually glad we kind of touched on this is that a lot of people in this industry do not want to learn because they kind of have that ego where they're super knowledgeable. They don't need to learn anything else. They don't want to learn from, a younger guy like myself because of that ego that they have. But in reality, once you realize, you're going to grow the fastest, progress the fastest once you open up and realize that, if you only take one piece of information from that person, but it's something that you didn't know, that could completely change how you grow your business, how you make moves going forward. And, just realize that there's knowledge out there that you don't have that you won't get unless you're open to the idea of coaching, mentoring, stuff like that. Everything will change for your business. So I was
Oh
also
yeah.
curious, when you got into coaching, before then, did you have any coaches, mentors of yourself, or did you kind of do everything on your own?
No, I've always, of course, my father's always been in business on his own. So I've always looked up to him and used his knowledge. And talking about learning from other people, that was the one thing that I used to tell people is, leaving things the same like so many older people do is a downfall. The one thing that I watched him do was that there was always change. He was always learning, because there's always something new coming out, and a lot of times it is a young guy. So if you have too much pride to learn from a young guy, then you're going to get passed up. So I mean, like Twitter and all these different things that are come that I mean that's been out for a while now, but just all these different apps and different things. If you don't learn from some of the young people, you'll be so far behind you won't have any business left.
Yeah.
You'll still be advertising in the newspaper, so I mean, I had him, and then through the years in our industry, we went to a lot of different events and seminars and stuff like that on sales and on running a business. I actually only went to I went to the 12th grade. I graduated high school, but I didn't do any further schooling that way. But I've been learning ever since the day I left school, as far as hard knocks type of stuff and going to seminars and reading books. I've read a lot of books about business and different things. So I've learned and adopted a lot of different ways that way. But I don't know, and you probably haven't ever heard. There's a guy named Terry Greenhut. He's really popular in the automotive field,
Mhm.
and probably, and of course, this is going way back in the '80s. he already had some of the knowledge that a lot of people don't learn or don't even know, in today's world. Matter of fact, we still have some of his tapes and they're on VHS. Do you know what that is? Because you're pretty young.
I do actually, yeah.
And so, but he taught about selling yourself and knowing your worth, and a lot of those things that really a lot of guys are just now talking about. That he's known for a long time. So there's a lot of that stuff that I learned as I went up, and so I had a lot of different mentors through the times.
Cool. I'm glad you touched on the educational side of things, because also like there's so many resources out there nowadays. Like there's YouTube, there's free videos, there's plenty of, courses or coaches, books. Like there's so many resources that you can use to, learn more about the business, learn more about sales, about marketing, every topic of the business. But a lot of guys just aren't taking advantage of that nowadays. So do you have any actionable advice that maybe someone who, hasn't done any self-education is kind of lost in their business, and where they could start to help push them in the right direction?
Something that always comes back to my mind in the past is, and this is definitely before your time, but you might know about it, but they're probably in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, but probably mainly late 90s. They had tons of courses about real estate, about how to buy real estate and flip it. I mean, there was 9 billion of them. Every commercial was teaching you how to, buy my book, buy this, do that. It was the number one thing that I found out about that is it doesn't really matter who what industry you're in. It doesn't matter who you learn from. It doesn't matter how you learn. It's all about just getting off your behind and doing it. So you can make money selling popsicle sticks if you just get out on the corner and push popsicle sticks every day, all day, and have passion about it. And it's just, you just got to get out and just do it. As far as the educational part, like you said, there's tons of outlets. I do an in-class, and I also have some online stuff for sales, marketing, and roof cleaning. But and obviously I love for somebody to pay me some money, but realistically, you can learn everything I learned for free. You just can't be lazy. You gotta get online, and you gotta set your mind to it, and just study it until you got to make it part of life.
Yeah.
Prime example is I use my father a lot. He was obviously a big mentor to mine, and we used to be big into hunting. And in the transmission industry, they had a magazine called Transmission Digest. It sounds funny to most people because it's a digest about transmissions. But we would go hunting, and he would be reading those in the deer stand. Because he was always wanting to be up and know what the new stuff was, what was going on in the industry. Back then they didn't have Facebook and all these different avenues or outlets. And so, you've got to live it. If you want to be successful, you almost just, and I'm not saying don't talk to family and be with family, because that's, in my opinion, I've learned the hard way that is super important. But when you get up at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, if you own your own business and you don't have a job, you need to treat your life like you have a job. You need to get up at 8 o'clock, whether you have work or not, and either clean something or YouTube something or study something or clean something for free, or you need to just be an employee of your own, basically, and make yourself get up and go to work.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. A lot of people start their own business thinking, I'm not going to do the 9 to 5. I'm going to have time freedom and do my own thing. Like if you truly want to be successful, get out of the 9 to 5, then you're going to have to do the 7 to 7, the 7 to 10. Like you're going to have to work far more than you worked at a 9 to 5. It won't be forever. Obviously, you'll get to a point where you can automate parts of the business, hire people for parts, and kind of see yourself out of the business. But in the beginning, like it's going to be a grind. It's going to be far more work than anything you've ever done. And you actually need to take action. So I'm glad you touched on that point too, because you could do all the training in the world, have the best coaches, the best courses, to watch all the videos in the world. But if you don't take action, all of that is useless.
Well, there was a great saying that I heard years ago, and it was education without implementation is just entertainment. And that
Yeah.
really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to say it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to sidestep a little bit and go into basically your approach at business at the moment. Because I know right now, like you've had teams in the past, you've had a larger scale operations, but as of now, you decided you want to scale back the operation side, have yourself and one employee in the business. So I'm curious why you decided to make that decision and what you would say the pros and cons of either option would be.
I'm 48 years old now, and so I tend to catch myself telling people don't grow, don't take that big risk because it didn't work for me. But I realize I've tried to realize that I don't need to push that on people for a few different reasons. One reason is that just because it didn't work for me, don't mean it won't work for them. I'm pretty all in type of a guy. But obviously, I wasn't all in enough to make that work. Part of my problem is I didn't hire the right people, so that was one of my issues. But at this point in my life, I've done all those things, and matter of fact, I bring my father up a lot. He actually had a few locations in auto repair years ago, but back then they didn't have cameras, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have internet. They didn't have any of these things, that we have today. So I thought, well, I can make it work. I had online repair order programs where I can see what cars are sitting in the lot. I can look on the camera and see I could visually see everything that's going on there. So I thought I could do it, and people can do it, but there's way more people that fail at trying to grow than actually do grow. And the reason is there's a few different reasons. One, it's just super stressful, and just because someone looks successful doesn't mean they are. Myself, and I know others that's had multiple locations, as far as brick and mortar stores, but then I've also known lots of guys in the pressure washing industry or AC repair industry, different ones that had different trucks that they look like they're doing great, but they have a large money turnover of money, but there's not a whole lot left for them because trying to grow, going from, for instance, if I wanted to get off my truck and not work every day, it would take 3 trucks worth of revenue to be able for me to profit what I profit now. Because as an owner, you're always going to do more work. You're always going to make your customer more happy. And so you're always going to get things done quicker. So to duplicate that is just very difficult. Of course, like I said, I learned the hard way that you got to hire good people. But at this time in my life, I would rather work myself and make really good money and be in control. And obviously, if something was to happen, if I was to fall, hurt myself, or get sick or whatever, that's a situation a person has to be prepared for. Fortunately, I'm older and I do have money saved up, and I can take care of myself if something like that did. So as a younger person, it's a double-edged sword. But I just want people to know that having a large business does not mean it doesn't automatically equal more money. It equals more gross sales, but it doesn't equal more profits. Prime example: when I had 5 location auto repair business, I made more money with 1 than I did with 5, because once you have 5, then you have to have people that are non-money generators, like secretaries, extra secretaries, bookkeepers, a corporate office type of a staff that aren't, they're needed, but they're not income generators. They're just you just need that to keep the whole thing together. And so those profits start getting split up a lot more when you grow. Now, once you get to say 10 stores, I was involved in a tire business we had 15 stores by the time it was said and done. And once you get bigger, then it's easier to overcome some of those things. But the stress just gets bigger with that too. I mean, we've had in the auto repair business and the tire business, for example, there's been mornings that I would wake up and assistant managers or mechanics out in the shop would call. We opened at 8:00. They would call me at 9:00 and say, "Hey, the manager's not here, so that we can't open the doors." So those are stressful situations to wake up to, and so that's the reason I don't like it. It doesn't. There's so many things that are just difficult and stressful that at my age I don't want to deal with. Now, as a young person, I dealt with it way better than I would now. I mean, at this point, I just want to fire everybody, but you can't do that. So,
Yeah.
uh, so that's just one of those things that in my time in life, I would rather just have me so that I'm totally in control. Uh, like I mentioned on a post I posted on Facebook the other day, there's times that I go with friends that have multiple locations or multiple trucks, and when I go on a trip with them, obviously my business is shut down because I'm gone. So I get to really enjoy myself. With these guys, their phone's not stopping. So you literally have no time on your own because 24/7 your phone's ringing with some kind of a problem. So you've got to be the person that can handle that can take that. And at my time in my life, I'm not willing to give that much of my life up. I did it for a lot of years, and I can't say that it was all negative because I learned a lot, and I grew from it. And like I said, I hate to tell somebody not to do it because there's so many people that do, and they make a fortune. But there's, like I said, there's way more that don't. Are you familiar with Mattress Mac?
No, I don't think I am.
You might have seen him on the news if you watch the news lately. He's
Mhm.
a furniture salesman in Houston, Texas, and he actually just bet he does it almost every year, but he bets if the Astros win the World Series. You tell him I'm a big sports fan. If the
Yeah,
Astros win,
that's
then
him.
then everybody that year that has bought furniture, he refunds them their money. So he just done a big bet and won like 100 million, but not 100 million, 10 million. I don't remember. It was a lot. But my
Mhm.
point being, he he has a book out, and I read it, and he done the same thing I did. He opened up multiple gyms, and you get so excited about having more gyms and more stores, and makes you feel good, but pumps you up. And anyway, he ended up going broke, and so now he's got one of the largest furniture stores in the country, and he actually just opened up a second location, but he's been in his business for 30 years now, so or 40 years. So, but he said the same thing. If you have one business and you focus on it, and you make it run right, you can make more profit than you can, spreading out.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind for anybody watching, this is different for everybody depending on, your goals, what you're trying to achieve out of life and the business. So for some people, they like dealing with the stress. They love having a team under them and, scaling up the team and getting as large of a revenue as you can might be the goal. And that's fine. But some people, they want to live stress free, have a bit more freedom, not deal with the headaches that come with that type of territory, and still be able to make multiple six figures because it's definitely possible to be making that kind of money with just yourself or just one other guy, and obviously make it much less stressful. So it's interesting to hear your story and how like you've been able to do that. I guess I want to know how you would rate your quality of life when you're running this high stress businesses compared to now when things are obviously much less stressful.
Well, first off, just to say, I was fortunate when I first started. I mean, I was running my father's business at 19, and so I did work out in the shop in auto repair, but I moved up to the office relatively quick. And so my point being is I didn't I was the boss pretty quickly, so I didn't have to work out in the field a whole lot in the beginning. And so my life is I'm almost working it backwards. Lots of people, they start out working, in the shop or, just managing the stores or whatever. And then they work through life and when they get my age, they don't have to work, out in the shop. They're mainly using their head to work because when they were younger, they had to use their back, older, they're using their head. So
Mhm.
with me, it was almost reversed. So I'm kind of a unicorn in that way compared to most people. I'm not. I started out in the office and didn't work, and now I actually work in the field. So I don't know if I can appreciate it more because I was in that situation. And I'm getting to what your question is. I've been really fortunate to not have to. My dad's always said, "Use your mind, not your back." And that's whether they say it or not. That's a lot of people's theory these days, which is a good theory, or a way of life. But I done that so long that I actually, at this part of my life, I actually enjoy doing the work. Being the head of a company, you run it and you see things happen, I guess, day to day, and money come in, but you don't really get a feeling of accomplishment, or I didn't. And so now when I clean a big building or a roof or whatever, I really get a great feeling of accomplishment by doing it. So to me, it's a better quality of life in that way. But as far as quality, just regular quality of life, it's 1,000 times better now. But of course, I'm trying to think of the word for it. It's kind of relative because if I was running my own company and working every day in it, whenever I was in my 20s, I might not have the financial situation. So instead of stressing over employees, I might be stressing over, am I going to sell this job? So it might be a little different. Now I'm not stressing over if I sell the job or not. So if I lose the job, I will. First off, I don't like losing jobs. I'm very competitive, and so. But if I do lose it on my terms, is the way I like to say it, then it does. It's not a big deal because I didn't need that job to survive. So my perspective is going to be just a little bit different. But my quality of life right now is 10 times what it ever was in the past for a few different reasons. One, I don't have the stress. I don't have the employees. Employees, when you add that to any business, it gets complicated for a few different reasons. When you have employees, if you're busy, they're making you money. If you're not busy, they're costing you money. And so, for instance, when I had the 5 location auto repair business, if we didn't have any customers for in any store, let's just say it never was that bad, but let's just say we had no customers in our stores for a week at 5 locations. If you've got 5 employees at each location, that's 25 employees. And then plus the office staff that I have, that needs their paycheck. So it can easily be 100 grand or whatever it may be, not 100 grand, 20 grand, whatever it is, got to come from somewhere. With this business, with just one employee, it doesn't take much to keep things rolling. So if I'm not busy, it doesn't bother me. If I had a brick and mortar location, or if I had a bunch of trucks, then you have to hustle hard because you have to keep everybody busy and make, really forget your paycheck. You got to make sure you make everybody else's to be able to keep the place afloat. So that's what ends up causing people to charge less and start giving less quality of work, because now they're not trying to make a profit. They're just trying to survive a lot of times. When times are good, it's not a big deal. They're making money, but when times are slow, then that's when you suffer. But again, quality of life for me these days, it's 1,000 times better. I mean, I work basically when I want to work. What I typically do is I try to schedule everything for around 3 days a week. Obviously, in the spring, sometimes we work 5 days a week just because it's our busy time.
Mm-hmm.
But we typically work 3 days a week, and we leave my home, which is I have a shop at home. We leave my home shop at 8 o'clock in the morning. We usually get home around 4 o'clock in the evening. And I mean, like last year, I can't remember exactly the numbers with all my companies, but I just shared it the other day. I think it was close to 400 that I did this year, and with the overhead that I have, I mean, it's probably 60% of that's profit. So I mean, in my opinion, I'm living my best life.
That's great. One of the questions I was actually going to dive into was regarding, your business's revenue and the profit margins. And one of the reasons why I said you're one of the most transparent, no bullshit dudes in the industry. Recently, I saw on Facebook, like you posted your pressure washing business's revenue or roof washing, the products businesses revenue. You kind of broke all of that down, which, there's very little people in the industry that would actually be that transparent, open. So that was awesome to see. And you also explained that you were kind of not a one-man show, but very small scale team. So if you could do it with just 2 guys, then that shows other people that are scared that, they're not going to be able to do that much revenue because they're a one-man show, or, they're not capable of finding the right people. Maybe you don't need more people. You just need to understand the business model better. So it was awesome to see that. And I was also curious, I was going to ask about the profit margin and what you would say, like, what are your biggest expenses, being that you don't have the big team, the big operations, you're able to cut back on expenses a bit more as to your profit margin. So you're saying you're at about 60%. I guess, what does that 40% mostly consist of?
And really, it's probably a little more than 60. That's just a safe number. I mean, the only cost, everything, all of my equipment I started out with, because when I first started this business, that's whenever I was pretty much, I had a shop. I wasn't completely broke, but I definitely I was right there at it. I couldn't miss a paycheck kind of a situation. But so when I first started, I started out with a 12-volt system. And honestly, I wasn't even planning on pressure washing. I was just planning on doing roof cleaning and really didn't even put those two things together, which is weird, but I just didn't, because roof cleaning was kind of and it still is. Nobody understands it. I love when people ask me, "What do you do for a living?" I'm like, "I clean roofs," and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and you can tell they have no idea what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So now I try to just say exterior cleaner, but so I say it's like I said, it's probably a little more, because really and my point to all that was, when I started out small with a 12-volt, and I just started adding to as I went. So and since I've been in this industry, every piece of equipment I've ever owned has been paid for, including my trucks paid for. So the only cost that I really have is, taxes, insurance, that one employee, and I only pay that employee when we work, and then fuel and bleach. And then, obviously the typical oil changes and just the normal stuff like that. So my two biggest things really is fuel and bleach. All the rest of the things, like I said, my employee, I only pay him 3 days a week, because he's and this is something I recommend to anybody that's needing employees. If you can find, especially if you're new, if you can find a retired guy, my last few employees have been retired, because they don't really need the money. They don't stay on their phone. They want to work because they're bored to death. They want to get out of their house, and so you can pay them a little bit of nothing most of the time, and get, they're older. Like the guy that I work with, he's 75. So
Wow.
he gets here. He gets here before I'm ready. I mean, he's like, are you ready or what? Of course, I'm the type of guy, I'm always early anyway, but he's early, and he never misses. And like I said, you don't have to pay him every day, and so that is a great asset to have, is by working those guys, so that if if I have no work, I mean, it's not costing me anything. I mean, I could go a week without work, and obviously I don't want to. I want to make money, but at least it's not costing me. And that's where I've learned, that's a major point in business, is to be able to have no cost, whether you're busy or, if you're not busy. Because if not, no matter how much money you make, if it just bleeds it back down. But on the profit margins, that's where I am on, I say 60 just for a safe number, but really it's a little bit better than that. On Roof King products, it's a little different, because there's so many parts and things involved in that. So it's more of like 30% profit margin over there. So it's just a different
ballgame.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first off, 60% is amazing for this industry. Almost.
Oh yeah, on any industry.
Yeah.
When I first started, like I said, I had this other business. I had a manager, so I didn't have to work there every day. So I advertised this, and I would do it. Well, the typical roof that I do is from $800 to $1,400, and so and we've got our systems down to. I mean, when we get out of the truck, we don't even talk. I mean, we get out and we just go to work. We don't, it's seamless, especially with the way I've got my equipment and all. I mean, literally, the typical roof that we clean is less than an hour. And so I still remember in the beginning thinking, I mean, I don't know if I could sell drugs and make the money that I make. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's a great industry.
Yeah. Honestly, it's such a good business model. I think something people don't realize is pricing strategy has a big part to play with it, because they're going for those little jobs, the little fish, and you're going to have to do a ton of jobs just to make what you might make in like a few hours on a $3,000 job. They might need to work 10 jobs to get the same amount. So obviously, to each their own. If they want to bang out, 5 jobs a day, very small jobs, make 1,500 a day, like by all means, they're more than welcome to do that. But eventually you kind of realize, I could take on less customers, increase the average ticket that we're doing, increase profit margins, and make the same amount, if not more, but you're working much less. So then in reality, you can increase revenue tremendously by not doing anything other than just switching up your pricing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. The Terry Green guy I was telling you about earlier, in the 80s, he told my father at one of their seminars, he was like, go home and double your prices. And of course, anybody's going to say, I mean, that's dumb. I can't do that. Yeah. And he said, I'm telling you, do it. He said, because you're going to lose half your customers, but you're going to make the same money at the end of the day. And look at all that free time you're going to have. So you can either advertise or go fishing, but you're going to make the same profit. And so we were like, that's crazy. But we tried it and it worked. And so
Yeah.
I teach that a lot. I mean, the pricing is it's the number one thing. I mean, I bid against a lot of guys on a roof that I'll do for 40 or 45 cents a foot, that other guys are doing it for 10 and 20. And I'm like, I mean, if I can sell them for 40 and 45, you can too. I mean, there's nothing special about me, especially for instance, how long have you been in the industry? Have you been in the industry very long?
About 2.5, 3 years.
So you've been there long enough to understand the business, but I mean, I've competed with guys that's been in the industry for 3 or 4 months on, so a customer would call me and call them wanting to get their roof cleaned. The customer has no idea the difference between me and him. So, I see a lot of people say, well, I just started, so I'm going to charge less until I get my, the ball rolling. Well, the problem is if you start low, that ball that you got rolling is going to start low.
Yeah.
You got to start it up to where if you make a job, you actually make a profit, because if not, if you do a job and don't make enough profit, then you end up, it's kind of a snowball effect. Then you're having to make more jobs with less profit, and then you're having to give jobs away. So if you just start out making, charging appropriately, then it doesn't matter if you get as many jobs. At least when you do a job, you make money. And that's one reason. Do you know of, or are you in my Pressure Washing Cowboys pricing group?
I think I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when I started that group, man, I mean, so many people made fun of me, telling me you can't do that. And that's price fixing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not price fixing. I'm just giving an example, and people can charge what they want. But, when I have whether I was in the auto repair industry or any industry that I've ever been in, if I went, whatever town I might be in, I always contacted my competition and told them what I was charging. Hopefully they would tell me what they were charging, but really I didn't care as much what they were charging. But I wanted them to know, for instance, if I'm going to clean a roof and I'm going to charge $1,000, I don't care if you bid 900 or 950, because I can a lot of times oversell you, or at least I can try, so that whether I do or not, at least I don't look like a criminal and he don't look like an idiot. Because there's times that I've bid roofs for $1,000 and somebody else bid it for 300. Well, a lot of times they won't get it because the customer thinks this guy obviously don't know what he's doing, and then I'm too high, so they'll end up picking somebody in the middle. But I always want my competition to know what I'm charging, so that way a lot of times it helps them get their pricing up, and then it just helps the industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And you definitely need to have your sales process down. You need to have your pricing strategy down. You need to be good at sales. So all of that needs to be taken care of. But as long as you know what you're doing, if you just literally go out, double your prices, obviously you're going to lose some customers that will always go with the cheapest option. But like you said, you're still going to make the same or more money from it. And something interesting is that psychologically people will be attracted to that higher price point because they'll see you're 3-4 times that the other competitor. They're probably thinking, wow, this is the price. They must provide so much value that it's worth the price and it's justifiable.
Yeah, we cleaned a hospital in Florida, and everybody there, a lot of Florida is kind of known for a cheaper, it's hard to charge more over there. And but of course Texas is getting that away as well because there's just so many washers. But in Florida, we bid a job for $60,000. The next bid that was close to ours was $28,000, and they said, these guys obviously don't know what they're doing. So we end up getting the job just because we were higher priced. If we're going to go to Florida, we're going to get paid for it,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, but obviously we got the job, ended up, we'd done 2 jobs for this hospital. And so the total ticket was like 150 grand altogether. And these other guys would have, they would have had pennies. And that kind of stuff just don't make sense to me. And I try to educate people on that, but it's scary because and I tell people that all the time, if if you're a small company or if you're new and you need to make the money, then it's hard to charge a higher price because you're nervous and because you need that money for bills this month. But I actually recommend being negotiable, which lots of guys say don't negotiate because it makes you look bad, and I agree if you don't do it in the proper way. By being able to negotiate, it gives you the chance of getting the top dollar jobs and some of them that's lower. So for example, if somebody calls and wants the roof clean, I tell them it's $1,000. If I don't sell the job, then I always try to find out why. So I'll message them the next day and check up. And sometimes it's I'm too high. Sometimes it's I got to talk to the wife, the story and whatever. But if it's the price, then I always let them know, hey, what are you looking to spend? Because a lot of times it's $50. It's not even it's surprisingly.
Yeah.
Sometimes more than that, but they don't want to say it. But still, they'll say 50, or 100. But sometimes what I'll do is I'll ask them and let them just tell me. And sometimes, if it's close enough, I can negotiate with them. But I just always explain to them, the only way that I can do that is if I take something away. So obviously, we can't take anything away from the roof. But what we can do is if you'll let me put a sign in the yard, if you'll go on Facebook and post before and after pictures, then I can write that loss that I'm having, I can write that off as advertising. And that way I've got to show it somehow. I can't just lose that money, so that way they realize that you're not just some Joe Blow. You actually have a business running, and you wasn't just trying to take advantage of them in the first place. You have a reason why you can lower it. And I mean, honestly, I'm totally willing to lose 50 or $100 to have this other guy, to have this customer pushing you on Facebook and telling people how great you are, so it's a win-win.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, eventually you'll reach a point in your business where you probably don't really want to negotiate. You have, enough customers to keep you busy. So you don't need every single customer. Not everyone's your customer, but in the earlier stages, you 100% should be negotiating if it comes to that, because you're going to miss out on a lot of jobs that you would have otherwise closed. You're going to miss out on a lot of before and after pictures, Google reviews, yard sign placements, like a ton of stuff like that, where, if you play it right, if you understand sales tactics, you actually did sales training, then you can play it off and still look very professional. And like you said, like you actually know what you're doing and you're not just, throwing prices, trying to get them to do anything, but you actually have a solidified process where, what, I'll lower the price X amount, but in exchange, if you don't mind, we would like a Google review or a yard sign placement or something out of it. So now it's an equal value trade.
That's right. Yeah. It makes you not seem slimy like a lot of guys, but especially for the guys that need to make a living, it kind of, it helps in that way. So instead of just being the low priced guy, I would rather be a negotiator than the low price guy, because the negotiator is going to get high tickets and low tickets. The low price guy just get all low tickets. So that's just an easier way for a new guy to survive is the way I look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
So another big thing that I'm an advocate of is on the pricing. Of course, if you're in a state that has to charge tax, then usually it will come out. Your pricing will come out in odd numbers. But for states that they don't have to charge tax, or if they're a person that's supposed to be charging tax but not charging tax, which is a lot of people in our industry, I recommend all the pricing always be odd numbers for a couple of reasons. For example, if somebody tells me, like today, I actually, on the top of the cab of my truck, I've had bleach tripping, so it's made it kind of rust a little bit, and so I got that repaired, and then I got it wrapped today to keep that chemical from being on the metal. So he gave me a price of $400. So I know when he told me 400 that was just a number that he just pulled straight out of the air. So I knew right off the bat that's a negotiable number. So I ended up getting it for $350. So, but if you tell somebody it's going to be $403.78, that number doesn't sound made up. That number, whether you make it up or not, it doesn't sound like it. And so it's going to be way harder for somebody to negotiate with that number than it would just 400.
Yeah.
So that's is a great piece of information that I've used, and it really works.
Yeah, because the customer's assuming you to have some type of formula to get to that number. Whereas like if you just throw out a flat number like 400, then they're assuming you just put something together and it's negotiable. So
yeah, you just threw it out there, which you did. What I mean? At the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, that is what you did. So
yeah, exactly. And something you also mentioned, which I think it's a great idea for those guys that are scared to charge more and are having trouble closing, is worst case scenario. Let's say you increase your prices and you're not able to close someone, then you can negotiate down. Whereas if you already start at that low point, there's really no negotiating you can do at that point. It's either yes or
Yeah,
no.
it's either a yes or no. It's yeah, yeah, exactly right.
Awesome. I know I already took up a lot of your time, so I don't want to take too much of your night. I guess, is there anywhere people can find you online, your YouTube channel or your website?
Yeah, roofkingproducts.com is my website for my equipment. Roman Roof Cleaning is the name of my company. But if there's anybody out there that's new or struggling, I'm more than glad to help. Just shoot, the best way to contact me is through Messenger. You can message me that way I can get, and it's just Gerald Vess. But that way I can have time to get back to you and respond, in a timely manner. That way I don't have to stop what I'm doing, answer the phone, all that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I enjoyed the talk.
Again, thank you so much.
All right, brother. Thank you.